Hello, everybody. Hello, and thank you very much for coming along to this event. So we're going to make a start on this event, which is being run by the UK Met Office in partnership with a range of organisations in Brazil and also across Europe as well. So this is celebrating two major programmes which are a partnership between the UK and Brazil. We'll hear about both of these programmes. One of the programmes is called CSSP Brazil, which is kind of a climate science service partnership in Brazil. I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Professor Richard Betts from the Met Office and from the University of Exeter. So yeah, the first of the programmes we'll hear about, one of the programmes we'll hear about is the CSSP Brazil programme, which has been going for 10 years now. So one of the things we're doing at this event is to celebrate 10 years of partnership on climate science research between the UK and Brazil, between three organisations in Brazil. In PATH, the National Institute for Amazon Research, in INDEED, the National Institute for Space Research, and then again, the National Institute for Disaster Risk Monitoring and Early Warning. So we're celebrating 10 years of that partnership. And we also, at the end of this event, we will be signing a memorandum of understanding for the next phase of the partnership going forward for the next 2 years. So that's the other aspect of the celebration. And then the second programme that we're celebrating is called Amazon Faith, the Amazon Premier CO2 Enrichment Programme, which you'll have seen on the wall over there and the video at the front and the video behind. This is a hugely ambitious experiment in the Amazon rainforest where we're studying the response of the forest to elevated CO2, and we'll use that to inform other models. And this programme, again, it's a partnership between the UK and Brazil in terms of the funding, but actually it's a genuinely global partnership. We have institutions from Germany, we have representatives of the German institutions involved in this, US, Netherlands. So centred around this UK-Brazil partnership is a global collaboration on the standards-based experiment, and you'll hear about that as well. And then I will explain who the panelists are. We have, after our two presentations on these two programmes, we have the panelists who are already in place here. We have Professor Dame Angela McLean, who's the UK Government Chief Scientific Advisor. We have Professor David Cassano, who's one of the keynote speakers in a few minutes, who leads one of the Brazilian leads on the Amazon base. Professor Anja Rame from the Technical University of Munich, who is the chair of the Scientific Steering Committee of the Amazon base programme. Dr. Andy Hartley, who again will give a short speech in a few minutes' time, who leads the CSSP Brazil programme. Professor Marina Rota, who's very eminent in Amazon research, and particularly has been involved in the science panel for the Amazon work. And Professor Osvaldo Rice from the Ministry of Science and Technology and Innovation here in Brazil, who's also central to the CSSP Brazil partnership and other UK Brazil partnerships. So after the keynote, we will have a panel discussion with these eminent folks with the question of what would the world be like without forest? And then you can see the QR code here, and that's by clicking on you get a larger version. We would like you to join in this conversation about what the world would be like without forest. If you don't want to take you to a Slido survey, if you put your phone on that, just go through that link, and anyone watching online can also do that. This has been available for the last few days online, so people have already been engaging with this question. So answer the question, what are your thoughts on what the world would be without forest? And we will discuss this in the panel later on and then get some feedback on that. Maria, do you want to organise this? Do you want to say anything more about the question at all? Okay, all good? Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So we'll hand over first of all to Beto for the presentation.
Hi there. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me here today. So, closer, even closer. Okay, right now. Better now? Oh, better, much better. Okay, so the idea of this experiment is really designed to influence and give to the side climate policy about tropical forests. So it's really designed science to generate public policy and around the importance of tropical forests in our world. So the idea behind the experiment is trying to understand how the tropical forest, and in particular the Amazon, will behave in a world of climate change. Right. So what we want to know is if the Amazon forest and other tropical forests will be there after climate change. Right. The scenarios for the Amazon, for instance, are about 3 to 4 degrees hotter by the end of the century and half of the desertification. So the question we are looking at is if elevated CO2 in the atmosphere will be influencing the response of the tropical forests to that threat. So what we are doing there in terms of infrastructure is a set of rings of towers from where CO2 is blown on the canopy of the tree, open air, so the structures you see over there. So you have 3 structures that release elevated CO2 on the top of the trees, and 3 structures that are working as controls. Right. So the idea is elevated CO2 may, for instance, help the forest to survive drought because of the increased effects in water use efficiency. So the trees can withstand drought easier than in scenarios with high CO2. Right. So also, for instance, there is the importance of the carbon balance, which with more CO2, trees can do more photosynthesis, and because of this, they can probably be stronger. So this is in simple terms, is to say that the experiment works like a time machine in some way. We are working with CO2 concentrations that are 50% above the ones we have today, and it's kind of putting the forest in atmospheric CO2 concentration of 30 to 50 years from now. And this may allow us to understand which impacts the Amazon will have if it's going through degradation because it's too hot, too dry, and it's not more the climate envelope for a tropical forest. Instead, it would be for a drier system like a savanna, for instance, or if because of the accidental effect of high CO2, which is the villain for climate change, but at the same time, it improves the physiology of the plant. It makes the physiology work in an easier way, let's say, for the plant. So which way are we going? Are we going towards a trajectory of degradation, or are we going to have the rainforest standing for longer? So this is a very important question when we think about policy, because you can anticipate impacts, to 30 to 50 or more years, and that would allow us, for instance, to be prepared to think on adaptation or, to understand which way we go. So this has been from the scratch designed for giving, support to public policy in Brazil. We do it together, as Rich said, with the UK. Kind of also was a spin-off from CSSP, right? So the support from the UK came from collaboration with UK we had already before. And that's the idea, basically, to give a bit of more support on the idea, because the running, I don't know how I am with time, one of the questions we worry, which is pretty much important for us and we give a lot of attention, is that this physiological effect of high CO2 in the atmosphere, the effect of high CO2 in the plants, may change the water balance, the hydrological cycle of the Amazon. Once you have a lot of CO2 available for the plants, more than the plants usually have, let's say the scenario we are 50% higher, plants can close the stomata, lose less water, and still get a lot of CO2. So this can allow the plants to get enough CO2, photosynthesize a lot, and lose less water, and then stand for drought. On the other side, the moment you have less evaporation to the atmosphere, there may be also less clouds. And then you get into a feedback where you have less clouds, less rain, then the plant tends to close the stomata even more, and then you have even less clouds, and then you can, just because you're increasing CO2 in the atmosphere, you may actually be changing the whole hydrological cycle, the amount of water and rain that's going to the rest of Brazil. And so this can be dramatic and very important for policy making in our country and for the globe of all. I've been told my time is over. Thank you.
Thank you, Beto. And just to say, there is a virtual reality exhibit which you can go and put the interactive goggles on maybe tomorrow, and you can experience flying through the Amazon Space Experiment. So come back tomorrow and have a go on that. But now I'll hand over to Andy Hartley to talk about the CSSP Brazil program. Here is Beto Andy.
Thank you, Richard. So, my name's Andy Hartley. I'm from the UK Met Office, and I'm going to talk to you about the Climate Science for Services Partnership, which is a long-term project that the UK has had with Brazil, and we're very proud to see very many of our partners here in the room today, and also on the panel. And so we abbreviate Climate Science for Services Partnership as CSSP. I'm going to say a little bit about some of the successes that we've had over the years, and how we're translating the work that Beto is doing through into climate services that not only improve our modelling for global climate science, but also improve services for the people of Brazil. So the aim of CSSP Brazil is to support the development of shared capability in climate services between the UK and Brazil, and it involves informing decision makers on strategies that they might like to employ for mitigation and adaptation. And you can see here some photos of our meetings over the years. The project was born in 2015 with a meeting at IMPA, and here you can see some slightly younger people compared to today. And you can see how our project has grown over the years as well. So we probably hosted well over 200 scientists through the project over the years. And it's a great testament to the collaboration that we can involve so many people. And it's worth pointing as well that we have an early career network now that's developed so that we can foster the next generation of UK and Brazil scientists in collaboration. And it really is it's worth the point making that through collaboration we really do see extra benefit of the work that we do. Okay, so I'm going to take you through 3 different examples of some of the work that we're doing and how we're developing services from that work. So firstly, we're really benefiting from observations in the Amazon. So the image on the left is from the Cashmere dry experiment, which has been running for 10 years. And this is an experiment where they've closed off the understory to rainfall. So they collect all of the rainfall, so they don't let it go through to the understory. And And this is a long-term project that CSSP Brazil has contributed towards UK involvement in. And this is giving us new understanding about the response of the forest to drought. On the right, you can see Amazon Base and a link to another project called Rainfall that's been going for a long time as well with the University of Leeds. And this is really helping us to discover new elements of ecosystem demography. So this is the whole idea of you have trees at different stages of development in the Amazon, and we want to be able to model that better in our Earth system models. And these new observations are helping us to do that. So this is the plot on the right is a plot from Art Argles, one of our scientists in the Met Office, who's developed a new robust ecosystem demography model. So improved modelling is all great, but we really want to be able to show the benefits of that improved modelling for the world, but also for Brazilian society. And of course, improved the Earth system modelling will help us to understand things like the sensitivity of the Amazon to a tipping point, which can then have knock-on consequences, of course, for the global climate system. But here we've been looking at the atmospheric processes that lead to high impact weather in Brazil. So here you can see in the image a cloud band event. This is one way of transporting the humidity from the Amazon across the central southern parts of Brazil. And this rainfall that comes from these cloud band events, they're also called atmospheric rivers. It really brings moisture to the agricultural areas of Brazil and the areas that really need water, and in particular the very highly populated parts of Brazil. But also, of course, this can lead to high impact weather events as well. So you can see from this image, we've been looking at the process that leads to these high impact weather events, and these improved models and the improved observations help us to do that. So some of the developments we've done in atmospheric modelling in CSSP is we've, for the first time, run a high-resolution climate simulation for South America. So I'm very proud to say that over the last few years, the UK, in collaboration with Brazilian partners, has run a 4-kilometre convection emitting simulation that can give us new insights into the interaction of high-impact weather events and heavy rainfall, and how that interacts with climate change in the future. So, again, improved modelling of these events is all great, but how do we benefit Brazilian society from this improved modelling? This is where the last bit comes in, and this is through our collaboration with CEMEDEM, which is the Brazilian Centre for Early Warning and Monitoring of Natural Disasters. And I should say, of course, the previous work I mentioned was in collaboration with IMPA, the Brazilian Institute for Amazon Research, and IMPI, the Brazilian Institute for Space Research. So with CEMEDEM, we've been looking at developing early warning systems of natural disasters, and in particular, you can see on the top right here, we've been developing a weather pattern-based approach for early warning of landslides. Landslides is a particularly important topic in Brazil because they are occurring more frequently, and we've seen from climate attribution studies that there's an increasing fingerprint of climate change on these landslide events. So, and this has been shown by the image you can see in the bottom left, the recent paper that we've published through the CSSP project, which is actually led by a Brazilian early career scientist that was looking at the climate driver of landslide events in Baixada Santista in this case. And it's not only landslides that we've been looking at, so we've seen that an increase in fire activity induced by climate change, as a recent study funded by CSSP Brazil has shown, And then, of course, this can lead to poor air quality in Brazil, which is, of course, another major problem, particularly during the dry season. So some other work we're doing with Pavilion again is to look at monitoring of droughts and to see whether we can predict these drought events in the present day, but also in the future. And yeah, so I think what we see here is a growing body of work that is influencing how we issue warnings in Brazil, or how our partners issue warnings in Brazil, and help us to identify trends, of future trends of these natural disasters in Brazil, so that in partnership we can develop robust plans for reducing disaster risk in the future. So that's all from me. Thank you. I'll hand back to Richard.
Thanks, Andy. So you can see that this UK-Brazil climate science collaboration involves experimental science, groundbreaking and pioneering ambitious experimental science and modelling. The computer modelling, which helps us understand the operations of the world, the Earth system, and the role of forests within that, and pulling that through to use models for climate projections, understanding climate change, early warning systems, really making a benefit to society. So pulling the science all the way through from experiments on plant all the way through to helping people and helping ecosystems. So this is not all about forests, but since we are here in the Amazon, in Belém, in the Amazon, we want to see how our discussion centres around the role of forest. So our panel discussion now will be about what the world would be without forests. So yeah, please join in with the QR code. There's also some papers actually with the QR code. If you could circulate the papers, pass the round thing, and use those to join in as well if you can. We'll start with the panel, but just before we do, I wanted to say, if anyone came here expecting a drinks reception afterwards, I'm very sorry. We've been told that the conference is not providing any catering in any of the pavilions after all. We heard this just before we started, so I'm very sorry about that. So please do still stick around for discussion afterwards, but it does mean we've got a little more time for the panel discussion, so that we can be a little more relaxed on that. So I'm very sorry, we only heard about this as we started. But please join in the discussion with the QR code and be ready with your questions for the panel in a minute. So what I will do now, so Andy and Becca have already spoken, but I will invite the panelists to give a few minutes of introducing themselves and their own work and their own thoughts on the world without forests. A few minutes, maybe like 3 minutes each, and then we'll open the floor open to questions. And so, Anya, if we could start with you, introduce yourself and what you do and your thoughts on the world without forests. Over to you.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you for putting together this nice panel here and this nice event. Yeah, so I'm not from the UK. I'm actually from Germany, from Technical University of Germany. I'm a professor there for land versus ecosystem interaction, and I work a lot on forests. So I work on modeling forests. I work on monitoring forests with remote sensing. I work on experiments in forests. So we are also running a drought experiment in the Bavilion forest. It's close to our university. And I am involved in the Amazon Place experiment that Beto just showed for since the beginning, for about 14 years. I remember this exactly because my son is exactly 14 years old and I was pregnant when we had the first discussions about this project. And I was very sad that I couldn't join the first meeting, but then David told me that we would meet probably more often, and that was true. So I'm very happy to see now that this experiment is becoming reality. And I'm currently steering the scientific committee. So we have a lot of discussions about how to do the science and how to get all the data being measured in the forest, so that we can really make, in the end, some point about the effects of CO2, of elevated CO2 on the forest. And the idea really is to integrate these data into models, into
Bangladesh.
models, landscape models, and then later on really upscale, really larger scale, and get better projections of the climate. Yeah, and about the question, what would the world be without forests, is a very difficult question, I would say, because I actually don't want to imagine that, because it's actually a horrible idea or imagination. And I mean, I have followed climate science for a long time, so I can see what is happening with impacts of climate change on these forests. I get a lot of questions from European forest managers about what they should do in order to maintain forests in the future. So this is not only a question in the Amazon, it's also a question in Europe, because we don't want to be there without forests. And I mean, you have seen a lot of data on this probably already, and I could tell you all the numbers, how much carbon forests store and how important they are for evapotranspiration and the water cycle. But in the end, it's what I think really counts is what you feel. Yeah. So imagine to go for a night walk on the weekend after a hard week of work or so. I mean, if you can't do this, like a virtual reality forest could never give you the same feeling as a real forest can do. So I think it's a lot also about what we feel about forests, and I think it's of course the science that can deliver the facts to make sure that forests are being maintained and that we still have a world with forests, but it's also a lot of our personal feeling.
Thank you, Anya. So, Osvaldo, over to you.
Do you hear me? Okay. Well, thanks a lot for this. Well, thanks a lot for the invitation to stay here. And I will ask your permission to speak in Portuguese.
Yes, please. Also, I should have said, actually, we do have translation. So anyone wants the translation, put your headphones on. This is fine. Yes.
But it's only Portuguese. The first one is a respectful position for my position now as a bureaucratic person in Ministry of Science and Technology. And the second one is to express my feeling about our cooperation. And there are no better language to express your feeling if you speak in your language. Well, I need to switch my mind from English to Portuguese. Well, a primeira questão que eu vejo não é apenas para responder o que serviço climático é e o que serviço climático representa. E a segunda é qual é a importância do Amazon Pay. A primeira questão que eu gostaria de tocar é de como o Ministério de Ciência, Tecnologia e Inovação olha a cooperação com o Reino Unido. Para nós, essa cooperação de longo período representa dois aspectos. O primeiro aspecto é que nós estamos fazendo boa ciência juntos. E a segunda é que nós estamos trabalhando de forma cooperativa. E isso significa que a relação entre os cientistas e os governos é a melhor possível. Se não fosse assim, esses projetos não teriam tantos anos de duração. Bem, serviço climático. O que é serviço climático? Quando a gente pensa que estamos fazendo um projeto de ciência para o serviço climático, nós estamos trabalhando em desenhar produtos que sejam apropriados para quem vai fazer uso desses produtos. Então, fazer serviço climático é olhar as necessidades daqueles para os quais nós estamos fazendo ciência. E quando nós olhamos a fragilidade de diversos ecossistemas no Brasil, não apenas ecossistemas ambientais, mas também ecossistemas sociais, nós entendemos por que serviço climático é importante. A segunda, o outro ponto, é porque o Amazon Face é tão importante. Há 30 anos atrás, nós tínhamos algumas questões a serem respondidas. Uma delas era qual era o papel da floresta amazônica no ciclo de carbono, qual era o papel da Amazônia no ciclo hidrológico, qual era o papel da Amazônia no clima global. Essas perguntas nós aprendemos ao longo do tempo. Mas a pergunta que se impõe agora é qual é o papel das mudanças climáticas sobre a Amazônia. E eu acho que esse projeto Amazon Face está exatamente trabalhando para tentar responder essa questão. Muito mais do que nós entendermos como a concentração de carbono em uma pequena porção da floresta vai afetar aquela região, nós estamos tentando olhar qual é o impacto das mudanças climáticas em toda a biodiversidade amazônica. Então, eu acho que essa cooperação ela é importante não apenas para a preservação do nosso bioma, para fazer uma boa ciência, mas também uma ação de cooperação na ciência da mitigação e da adaptação. Muito obrigado. I can now keep it all of night in English if you want.
Oh. So we'll come back to this end to start with. We'll finish with you guys in a minute. And then Marie, then we'll hand over to you now, please. You can use this one.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll try to speak in English, even having feelings, but I think you're right. So thanks very much, Richard, for inviting me to be here. Although I'm not officially none of the projects, I'm working together like in a hidden space. So I follow 2 students in the CSSE project, and I have to tell that in my perspective, this gave them so many subsidies to move forward in the academic career. And I just want to bring this up because it's also hidden, right? It's not shown how impactful can be participating in a program like this. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity for this to be. So one of them is still in there, Hindi. So working with the flying rivers and stuff like that. So it's really cool. And the other part, presenting myself, I'm Marina Hirota. I've been working in the Federal University of Santa Catarina, but I'm switching now, transitioning to a new institute, private institute, created to have an interface with policy in Brazil, private, non-profit. So I'm in the transitional period at the moment, but I was teaching meteorology at the university. So my academic background is applied mathematics, but I went from mathematics to computer sciences, meteorology, ecology, and now anthropology and archaeology. So it's a mixture of things. And I think it's very important because we are dealing with the Earth system and the people now living in the Earth system. So I want to bring this perspective, although I'm not from the social sciences at all. But I just want to bring this perspective because Richard asked me to talk about my role in the science panel for the Amazon. And I don't know how many of you know about the science panel for the Amazon. So I'm going to explain a little bit. So it was created in 2019, just before COVID shut down. And by 2021, we published around 300 authors. We published a report talking about the state of the Amazon in different parts. The first part, Amazon as an entity, so geodiversity, biodiversity, the different conditions that shape the Amazon the way it is now. Second part is about the changes, climate change affecting the Amazon basin and also the biogeochemical cycles, biodiversity, and everything that has impact. And the third part consists of the solution phase and how what the propositions, what are the propositions for a sustainable and livable Amazon. And then after that, now in here, we launched the second report, and I see faces here that the colleagues participating in this report. So Marengo is there, Davi, and I'm not sure if Beto was there. I think you know. Okay. And then Yadvinder was there as well, Richard, part of the report, and also yeah. So I think the idea was to have now not an update, but a different perspective of how the Amazon is connected with different Amazonias inside and to the planet. So a different perspective of connectivity, different dimensions of connectivity. And I participated, considering my last part of my pathway in science, on a chapter about knowledge connectivity, to how knowledge is produced and spread inside the Amazon forest. And the idea was that we could tackle indigenous knowledge systems, other people's knowledge systems, and also within science. So for our surprise, knowledge in the Amazon is produced in Brazil more with the UK and the US than with Peru, Colombia, Ecuador. So that was really striking, and because we are all in one of the 8 countries plus an overseas state, Guyana, French Guyana, and it was really striking to see that we don't collaborate with our neighbors. But I think that's because there are programs like this, right? So we have to work to build programs like this within South America too. So outside of the scientific academic world, we also tackled the integration or the dialogue between different knowledge systems. And this is even more difficult because we cannot talk to each other within the academic system. Imagine with a different perspective of the life in general. It's really hard, but we did an exercise calling out for different indigenous voices within the reports. And this is what I connect to the question Richard posed here in the beginning. What would be the world, what would the world be without forests? For me, we would lose so many cultures, not only forests, tropical forests, but we think about destruction, we think about degradation, we think about redistribution, but we don't think about people, Sometimes we just think about the biophysical, the biophysics, and I understand that because I'm a modeler by training. But the thing is that people are suffering so much inside different forests, not only tropical forests, but different forests, boreal forests, flooded forests, dry forests, that I think it's really important to bring up the role of these native peoples in shaping what we have here today as the forest we see. So I think it's really important to me to think about the peoples that shape, resist, and help forests recover. And not only how people destroy the forest, degrade the forest, deforest the forest. So for me, a world without the forest would be a less diverse world in terms of the humans living in the planet. And I really would like to call the attention for us to reflect on the role of science, the academic Western sciences, in bringing together different knowledge systems, how open we are to this, and how we could all benefit of this integration of knowledge, because we are so fragmented in so many disciplines we work with, and we have so many duties that we can all really knock on the door of the fellow beside us to talk about science. And I really miss this. So how can we possibly talk to different perspectives of life? And this has been stowed for a long time, not a long time, but a little time. And I think we are not effective in talking to each other. So I really want to pose kind of a reflection on how we can talk to the others and to the different knowledge systems in a way that we propose solutions that are more effective, more sustainable, and better for the planet in general, not for the ones living in the cities. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. Fantastic insights. Over to you, Angela.
Thanks so much, Richard. I feel like we're talking about, I can feel us talking about three kinds of collaboration here. So collaboration between UK and Brazil, that Osvaldo has spoken so eloquently about. Collaboration between experimental measurement on the one hand and theory and modeling on the other hand, that Andy and Betta have talked to us about. And collaboration between science on the one hand and policy, so that you can make life better for people that many of us in this panel have spoken about. So I was particularly taken with Marina's very short introduction to her life. Over no beer, I shall be talking to Marina about her career, because it has. I also started life as a mathematician. So I trained first as a mathematician. I'll be honest with you, I thought, oh, I don't like this. So later on became a biologist. I worked as a biologist, actually, basically an applied mathematician in biology departments for my whole career. And then eventually I thought, okay, well, I've done that. And decided that I would become a civil servant, because I was really, really interested in these questions about how can we use science to make better policy so things are better for people. So I just want to speak very briefly about my experience in two of those. So I was an infectious disease modeler. I did modeling that was either about the spread of infections between people or about the spread of infections inside an individual. And in both those bits of my life, the single thing that was always most important was to find collaborations with people who were gathering data that would help us fix whatever was the most efficient fit of our model at that time. And for me, that's the incredibly exciting thing about Amazon Faith. It's this business of this beautiful experiment, which I had the great good luck to visit at the beginning of this week. So that asked this question that is so simple. I think like any great experiment, it's a question that you could pose to explain to an 8-year-old. So what is that question? That question says, well, what will happen to the forest if you made a very big change in the amount of carbon dioxide in the air? And any 8-year-old can understand what carbon dioxide is, right? It's what makes your fizzy drink fizzy. And I think an 8-year-old would look at us and say, what do you mean you don't know that? Actually, given what you've done to the planet that I'm going to inherit from you, I think you should have done this ages ago. And actually, I think that's always a great motivator for anything. If something, oh gosh, why didn't I do this ages ago? Then it's a very good sign that it's something that you really need to do. So I really, really applaud the very straightforward, extremely important question that this also very beautiful experiment is going to answer for us. And then on the other hand, the other bit what we're talking about that I have any personal experience of is this issue of how do you take what we know in science and actually use it in ways that make people's lives better, because various kinds of government are making better policy. And what you were saying all along here was very resonant for me, that there's actually quite a big language difference in both directions, and that both parts of, of that interaction need to learn quite a lot about what the other half means when they speak in a language that you think you understand, but actually the subtleties of the language are very great and quite a barrier between us. So it's something I've been doing for quite some time. I enjoy it enormously, and I hugely applaud the work that all of my panelists, my co-panelists, are doing in that field. I don't have an answer to what would the world be without forests, but from what I've heard from my co-panelists, it's very clearly not one we want.
Thank you very much, Angela. So when I go over to Andy, we already heard what you do, so you go straight to the question of your perspective on what the world would be without forests, and then after you and Beto will open the floor to questions.
Thank you, Rich. I think I would go for actually what is the world with forests.
Okay.
So I think the world with forests is ecosystem services. Okay, you know, and recognizing all of the services that they provide for the benefit of society, and it all comes down to people at the end of the day, as Angela just said. So you know, and there's lots of ways that we know that forests benefit us in societies. You know, there's the global climate system. It helps regulate global climate, sequester CO2. You know, we know that the land carbon sink has sequestered roughly 25% of anthropogenic CO2 emissions, and continues to do so. So that's why we need forests to regulate the climate system. We know when we look at Brazil, it provides water for large parts of the country that are so dependent on water at the point of use, particularly in the southeast of Brazil where there's large populated areas. It provides not only water, it provides water for agriculture as well, so that you know, Brazil can function as one of the large agricultural producers of the world, and continue to do so. Forests provide temperature regulation. So we know from the studies at the University of Leeds that have been published recently that losing the forest in certain parts of the Amazon can lead to a temperature shift of up to 5 degrees Celsius. And we've also seen from work that Marina's students have been doing in Leeds of the downstream effects of that, and how losing the forest can affect heat waves in other parts of Brazil, and can affect flooding in other parts of Brazil, and fire occurrence. It's really some of the new science coming out to really give us more information about the role of forests on wider society is really compelling. Other work that we're doing in PSSP is showing the value of the forest for energy systems. So 80% of the power used in Brazil is from hydroelectric power. So the hydrological system is so dependent on the provision of moisture from the forest. And also, you know, going back to the climate system, we're dependent on the continuing function of the Amazon to avoid global tipping points. And this is critical for everybody in the world that we avoid that. So, but it ultimately comes back to people, and it's okay for us to sit here and say, you know, that this is the value of the forest, but actually it's for people to understand that we need to be better as scientists to communicate that, and ultimately that's what will come back down to how we protect the forest. If everybody understands the value of it, and everybody understands how we need to protect it. So, over to you, Beto.
Hi, Angie, I was going more or less in the same direction of ecosystem services, so we'll just add a few more information on that. So, tropical forests in general, but I'll be talking more about the Amazon. And the rainforest, it affects the life of people in so many ways that usually people are not aware of how much the Amazon is affecting your life from wherever you are, So if you are living close to the forest, like there are 30 million people living in the Amazon, well, this connection is probably, more close to you, right? So it regulates your local weather. If there is deforestation in your area, for instance, your climate, your weather will be like 3 degrees hotter or more than when you are close to the forest. So it disrupts your, the rainfall patterns in your area. So if you're living there closely, you can feel it directly. But people living in São Paulo, in Rio, or South America don't realize, usually how much the rainforest is influencing your life, either in cultural ways or more directly, as Angie said, with water supply. 30 to 50% of the rainfall that goes south of Brazil comes from the flying rivers in the Amazon. So it feeds our agriculture, as Angie said, our hydroelectrical power plant reservoirs, but also the water that people drink. So if we think in a world without the Amazon, we can also go a bit further on the impact that the world would have. Imagine how the agricultural capability of Brazil, how the production we have, particularly in commodities, and not to mention, the food that is produced to actually, which is not the commodity, right? So the small farming that sustains food security in the country. But let's go a little bit to the commodity world. If that stops, if we crack, the participation of Brazil is so massive, and the rest of South America, not to say just Brazil, is so massive in that market that we would have a global market failure, without the Amazon. This is one example of ways that the rainforest is influencing it. There is also the biodiversity side of it. We don't even get to know how the possibilities that we have in the Amazon. Seems sometimes that we are, trying to read the books in the library while the library is funny. We don't get to really know everything that is there. And this would be a massive loss for humanity. Not to mention source of diseases like COVID we had in China, we could have in Brazil. So there is a whole system in equilibrium that would be a dystopic scenario that could be well ahead of us in a few decades. If you think of tipping points and things like that. So the impact of the rainforest in our lives is massive. It regulates the climate. It has this big, huge, dark green area that absorbs light instead of reflects it to the atmosphere, which would make the world way hotter than it is now. Not to mention there are 120 billion tons of carbon that's stored there, which is equivalent to 10 years of emissions. So the ways that the rainforest impacts our lives is huge. And the impact of losing it, like also mentioned briefly towards the end already, Rich, is we are experiencing already a lot of change in the Amazon. So in the last 20 years, we had 11 years of extreme weather, either massive floods in the Amazon or massive droughts. In 2023 and 24 were two massive droughts, one behind each other. And we saw people in the Amazon. I live in the Amazon. I live in Manaus. We saw people in the place in the world that there is the biggest amount of water, actually thirsty, not having access to drinkable water in the communities, right in the middle of the Amazon, totally away from human disturbance. So we are already going towards the loss of the Amazon. You know, it's not the same weather we had in the last 100 years. You know, and this is scary. You know, we have seen the Amazon losing 30% of its carbon sink capacity in the last 30 years. So the scenario seems, at least it's a scenario of change ahead of us. You know, so it may, unfortunately, it may not be far away the day that we will feel the answer to that question. But I hope we, in a place like the COP, we have to keep our hopes and think in a way to say that's enough. That's, you know, because we cannot come back after that. You know, once we go through the biological limits, you know, like overshooting discussions that we had here in COP, you know, you cannot go back after you trigger some biological limits. And I guess that's it. I live with that message. I think it would be horrible. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Let's hope that we never actually answer this question. And this remains entirely hypothetical. So thank you for all those insights. So we have a few minutes for questions if anybody wants to raise any questions for the panel of experts here on the topic in general or on the keynote presentations you heard earlier about the different Amazon base or CFSP Brazil or other research. So anybody got any questions for the panel? Yes, over here. Yeah. That one, so I can use.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for the presentation and for the discussion. My name is Clément. I work at the European Space Agency. I'm based in the UK, and my team implements the climate program. I would like to make a call for further collaboration. Last month, we started a climate campaign in the Santarém area, in the Tapajos forest. We wanted to better understand how different types of forests interact with their surroundings, with the atmosphere, and we started a campaign combining ground measurements, fixed, roving, airborne measurements, and satellite data as well. It has an extremely strong UK component because it is led by King's College London. We use the aircraft from the British Antarctic Survey coming from Canada to Santarém, instrument from the University of Leicester and NCEO. We wanted to fly over the space experiment, but it didn't start yet. Next year, we are going to continue this campaign, maybe not with BAS, but with DLR and the University of Bremen, the Comet 3 campaign with the Halo aircraft. It would be great to see if we can fly over the space experiment and see if we can also pick up the signal from the aircraft.
Okay. Thank you. Beto, do you want to respond to that one? Is that microphone working?
Thank you. Thank you for your comment, Clement. That's very nice indeed. Very good idea. We are planning to start the experiment in May, and then run it for 10 years with something I didn't say in my talk. So we run with the most open science possible way, and collaboration is always welcome. We have a policy that you write a 2-page something, say, okay, that's my idea, and send to our scientific steering committee, which Anya leads, and we make the collaboration happen. So the idea should be always that the answer is yes, unless we cannot do that. So it would be really great to collaborate.
Thanks a lot, Carlos. And of course, I forgot that I wanted to say that we are working with the Brazilian Space Agency, AEB, INPE, and UFOPA, University of Western Para, who was critical, very important to set up new towers in the different parts of the forest.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm Olivia from the UK Embassy in Brazil. My question is, so this is the first COP that has brought the world to the Amazon to see it. I suppose my question is, what's the one thing you'd like the world to take away from this experience of being here in Belém for COP?
So should I put this to Marina first of all?
Mm.
That's it. Because in general, we see what is wrong, what is the mess, and what didn't work out, right? There are so many other things to see. And I think here in Belém, which we could see in the first few days, especially, the structure was not totally ready. So people were complaining, and of course, there is the negotiations and everything we expect. But if we look around, taking the opportunity to be here, I think I would like the world to see the beauty that exists if you just look around.
So I think it's such a great question. Everyone can have a go at answering that. So all have a go if you want to.
I would say the people. And I've been enriched by meeting indigenous peoples from across the Amazon this week, and it's great to see the knowledge that they have about the forest and how connected they are to it, and it really brings it home to us how valuable it is to them and how important it is that we maintain it.
I would say it would be great if everybody could see the Amazon with the eyes with my eyes, with our eyes, because we do have a good impression of what it is truly, So it would be great if people could, at least for a few days, actually go to the rainforest. That would be great, and actually see the complexity. That's an environment that's totally different from where people come from usually, but also to have this sense of urgency. In my career, the 30 years, I have been studying how the Amazon is changing, trying to understand the ecological process, the functioning of the rainforest. And what we have been seeing is that we have a forest that is changing. So we are looking for trajectories. We are looking to, and what it brings to us is a sense of urgency, right? Which doesn't seem to be ringing the bell. So I guess if people could have the eyes of the indigenous communities that are feeling it, the scientists that are trying to understand what's going on, where it's going, that would help a lot with the discussions, I think. And also this idea, of why the Amazon matters to me. So this question is really, really relevant. It doesn't seem to be ringing the bell.
Well, it is really a good question. What should be the agenda after COP30? I have no doubt that the scientific agenda will be very clear. What the question that you have open and how the science can try to improve the understanding that you have about the climate science. But for me, the most important question that you have is how to communicate the risk that you have. The main point that we have nowadays is one specific vulnerability. When you deny the climate change, this is one very clear vulnerability that we need to fight against. So for me, how to communicate the risk for decision makers and for the population is the next agenda that you need to consider.
There's not so much left to say, but I would take home the temperature here. So if you go outside, you can feel that it's very hot. If you will be in the city, it's much hotter than if you will be in a forest. So you can really feel the difference in the forest. And if you imagine, these high temperatures, so that the plants are already very close to a temperature limit, I would say. So if we think about increasing temperatures caused by climate change, there will be a limit at some point. And if we, so this could also kill the forest in the end, and then it would even be hotter here. So.
Thank you. So thank you for the great questions. Great. Go ahead. Yes.
Well, today I understand that I am able to survive with 1.5 degrees below the normal. But I am not sure that I can survive with such noise. And so I hope that in the future would be more quiet than this environment.
Thank you. So one final question over at the back there. Okay. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I'm Arif from Tanzania. I have a picture that answers that question. What would the world be without a forest? It is a picture of a student from Tanzania who is carrying a tree going to school because there is no forest. It's a future picture. If we don't act now, in the future, every person has to carry a tree to get fresh air. So this is a message for the world to take immediate action to protect our forest, to protect our environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, very much. There was another question here. Sorry, last question.
Good evening. Just a quick closing comment.
Yeah.
I represent the private sector. I know you. I know you, Limba. Now, I work in the forest with my team, Emanuela Evangelista, and upon the Joao. It is private sector. The whole thing is run by the private sector. We will never, ever solve this problem until people learn how to engage the private sector, talk to them, take the money out. There's lots of money around. I've been to COP since 2012, Copenhagen, and I remember talking about, not me, far too small talk. I remember talking about engaging the private sector. We're now in 25. There is no one here from the private sector, really. I know some of the big companies, they have a few people, but there's no engagement. No engagement with the entrepreneurs, no engagement in California, no engagement with the people. I have a private company as well. When it gets sick, I call the company doctor. I don't call the engineer. We really need to somehow engage the private sector in a monumentally large way.
Thank you. Any responses from the panel on that? Marina agrees.
I agree. I already told you that when we met.
Any other interesting thoughts on this? Go ahead if you want to.
Well, you would be better. Go ahead. Yeah. Well, let's put us out in the situation.
No, I will not try to answer that. But I will do some other reflections. When I look at the question, I think in another question. What would the forest be without the human being? I have no doubt that the forest is not a risk for our survival, but we are the risk for the forest.
Interesting. Go ahead.
It would be great if people come to senses and actually collaborate. You know, it's really complicated because even us here discussing things, scientists, governments, do we actually interfere in that, in the debate that's going there? How much can we do that? So it seems that as a species, we won't be able to do much until it's actually too late, probably. So because we don't get, I have a bit of a pessimistic view. We don't really get the private sector. Some governments that are climate denials. Yeah, it's a green scenario, which I tried it to end in a positive note, but I mean, yeah, it would be great. But then I give you back the question: how we do that? It's not an easy thing.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's now time to. Oh, yeah.
Yes, let's hope for Monday.
Now time to hear from the audience on the question of what the world will be without forest. So I'll hand over to Maria Clara, who's the head of communications management. Over to you.
Thank you, Rich. Lucas, can you put for the link? Well, so I'll introduce myself. I'm Maria Clara, the communication manager for Amazon Pay. Rich asked me to tell us a little bit more about what I do, so I kind of translate what the scientists do to social media and science, for example. And I also have outreach actions that we want to make. I also talk to media and let them know what the best big person inside of our group is. So we have here our answers. The answer that most appeared was dead. Desert and habitable and loss of biodiversity. We have hot, sad, deserts, unthinkable, dry, disaster, no more world, Mad Max, unbearable for living, tragic, miserable, hungry, difficult, a huge desert. Human survival will be difficult, meaningless, no life, the depressing, black sky, Amazon, no atmosphere, horrible, calor is heat in Portuguese, sadder, destroyed in Portuguese, destruído, lonelier, inexistent, catastrophe, errand. Everyone has to carry a tree. Joyless, world without their lungs, and drier, sick, hotter, and no medicine. For me, the world without forest would be similar to no medicine, as to be in the forest helps a lot with mental health and other issues. And as I have learned with forest people here, to take care of the forest is like to take care of our own body, as they don't see a distinction between themselves and in nature. Hello, thank you.
Thank you, Maria Clara. Thank you for arranging that and for summarising it. Yes, this reminds us what is at stake here. But I really like what you did, Andy, about the discussion round and thinking what we have from forest and how we should celebrate that. And I think I would like to end on a more positive note that the forests exist and we can protect them and we must protect them and they give us so much. Let's do that. So yeah, thank you for a great discussion on this. We will now go to the signing ceremony, which again is celebrating ongoing collaboration, which will help with the protection of the forest and action on climate change. So we have Osvaldo will representing the Brazilian government. I'd also like to introduce Sarah Tag representing the UK government, Deputy Consul General working for the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office. So thank you very much. We're looking forward to working with you for another 10 years. Thank you very much. Yes, yes. And thank you to the speakers, thank you to the panelists, and thank you to the audience. And do stick around for a conversation, even though we don't have the drinks afterwards. Sorry about that. But thank you for joining us. Thank you.